Hello and welcome to TalkFCB and welcome back here to the channel, guys, for another video. And today we are going to be once again looking over some Barcelona news, everything that's going on right now on the Barcelona front, especially following that game yesterday against Atletico Madrid. Obviously we won the game, we're a step closer to La Liga, but a lot of other things went on in that game that I do want to discuss in this video. And the first one is one that I think divides opinion, but I really want to know your guys' thoughts. It was basically Valverde yesterday reacting to the crowd booing Andre Gomes, and I think that's a pretty big subject because I think it's good from Valverde to stand firm, to back his players. Obviously yesterday the crowd at the Camp Nou frustrated with Andre Gomes, and to be fair, it wasn't just one time that they booed Gomes. He received bad treatment right throughout the game, every bad touch, every loose ball, every sort of breakdown in play. There was booing, whistling, there was nervousness in the Camp Nou crowd, and basically after all that happened, after it happened a few times, Valverde on the bench, the camera panned on him, and he basically reacted to that crowd booing by swearing, and he basically said support. You know, he was shouting to the crowd, you've got to support, that's what you're there for, that's what you're supposed to do, which I think is genuinely one of the first times, or one of the very few times, that I've ever seen him get animated on the touchline. And even actually when they looked at it in a bit more detail after the game, a lot of TV stations look into the game, they look at different moments, that was one of them. And after that booing, you saw Ter Stegen in the goal of Barcelona. He was basically walking around, he was looking into the crowd, and even he reacted quite angrily to that. He said come on, and he was basically looking again for some support from the crowd and not to do with that booing. And to be honest, I would tend to agree with both of them, with Valverde, with Ter Stegen, because I think at times, you know, even the majority of the time, to be honest, we will all get very frustrated with Andre Gomes. And I actually think Gomes is probably more frustrating than, say, Paulinho, because there's actually something about Gomes which, when I watch him, when I see him, when I look at his characteristics, when I look at his attributes, there's actually something in there that says to me, maybe, just maybe, he can actually become a Barcelona player. He can become someone who does suit the Barcelona system, but it just never ever quite happens for him. It just makes it all the more frustrating for us having to watch him. And in a game like yesterday though, for me, it's all about the crowd. They have to come there and support the team. It was a title deciding game. Barca against Atletico, first versus second. Why are you focusing on an individual? There was no need for that for me. People rightly criticise, you know, Real Madrid fans for booing their own players at the Bernabeu, and that's not what we want to be doing at our stadium. That is not something that we should have happening at the Camp Nou. After the game, when you want to analyse it, when you want to review it, just like we come here and do every single week, then is the time to say Gomes wasn't good enough, or Gomes did something wrong. Then you can criticise players, then you can question players, but not during the game. During the game, you should be behind the team as a whole. You shouldn't be focusing on any individual player. You shouldn't be singling somebody out during the game, especially the fans at the stadium. The players needed them in that game, and they needed the support from every single one of that crowd. They didn't want to hear boos, they didn't want to hear whistles, and I think in that moment, Valverde and Ter Stegen, for me, were absolutely right. I think that's why we saw such an angry reaction from Valverde. It wasn't because it was Gomes. I think it would have been the same if it was any player. Ter Stegen as well, clearly frustrated, and I'm sure many of the other players as well wish that it doesn't happen. So I really hope this is something we stamp out early on, especially in this kind of game. That's not really what we needed from the crowd. And up next, I want to discuss Andres Iniesta, and I think after yesterday, obviously the injury that he sustained in the first half against Atletico, which forced him off the field, Gomes actually, incidentally, the man to come on in his place. But I think we've all been anxiously waiting around today, waiting to hear the news about his injury. How serious is it going to be? How long is he going to be out for? And as I'm recording this, we have not heard any official news from the club regarding Iniesta. And I think there's maybe a bit more to that, because at the moment, reports in Spain are saying that Iniesta will miss between 3 to 4 weeks of action, which basically, if that were to be true, that would leave him out until the end of the month, meaning that he'd then miss the game against Chelsea at the Camp Nou, which of course is an absolutely vital game. Now, Sport came out and they actually said something very interesting about Iniesta and trying to recover from his injury. They said that basically Iniesta knows that obviously this injury is quite a serious one, it is going to be a few weeks, but he hasn't given up on making that Chelsea game, which is a week on Wednesday. He is still fighting to be fit for that game, and I'm just maybe reading reading maybe into this a bit too much, but I just think maybe that's why the club haven't released any official news just yet. Maybe they're just waiting a few more days just to see how Iniesta can react to this, to see if he can maybe bounce back and come back quicker than expected. Right now, 3 to 4 weeks according to reports in Spain, but it's being left open. That Chelsea game is firmly in mind, and Iniesta apparently is doing everything in his power to be available for that. Up next on the agenda is Arthur Melo from Gremio, of course, a player that we have spoken about over the last few months, potentially coming in as a new Barcelona player, and there have been some developments on that front. According to Mundo Deportivo, the transfer of Arthur to Barca is very, very close indeed. Apparently, it's a matter of days before it could be confirmed. Now, make of that what you will. Mundo Deportivo say that everything has now been agreed between Barca and Gremio in terms of the transfer fee, and also Arthur's agent is currently in Barcelona to finalise the deal, to finalise those personal terms, and make Arthur officially a Barcelona player. Apparently, the deal will see Arthur join Barcelona in January of next year, so that's January 2019, and there will be no clause to bring him any earlier. For instance, if we wanted to sign him in the summer a bit earlier, that wouldn't be possible. So Arthur potentially in January 2019. And Globo Esporte, a Brazilian news outlet, also follow this story. They say that Arthur's agent is in Barcelona, and apparently the transfer fee will be 30 million euros plus a potential 10 million in variable add-ons, which for me, if that were true, that'd be a very, very good deal indeed. Arthur's release clause was 50 million euros. That would have meant that we'd managed to negotiate a little bit and bring that down, and he's certainly a very talented player, and that in the modern market would be a good deal. And Globo Esporte say that Arthur would sign with Barca on a 5-year contract. In sport as well, everybody seems to be in on this story right now. They also believe that it's very, very close. Apparently, again, it could be official in the coming day or two. But as always with these kind of stories, guys, it is exciting to see that it is getting close, but we've got to wait and see, because we've heard this story many times with many different players. Apparently it's close, or within a few hours, within a few days. I really hope that it does happen. I really hope that it is going to happen very soon, because if it does, it'll be fantastic news. What we've seen of Arthur so far, he could certainly strengthen our midfield in the years to come. He's a young player with a lot of talent and a lot of potential. It's just a shame in some ways that we'll have to wait until, January of 2019 for him to join up. But obviously in that time away from the club, he will be gaining some valuable experience. So hopefully in the coming days we can hear a bit more on this. Hopefully it does become official, but all we know right now is potentially his agent is in Barcelona and Arthur is closing in on Barca. And finally, guys, it is time to discuss the Catalan Super Cup. Today, the players were given a day off in training by Valverde, so nothing took place today. They were all given a rest. I think it was a pretty good idea, to be honest. After yesterday's game, it was a very intense game. There were some tough challenges and a very hectic schedule as well, of course. Playing on the Thursday against Las Palmas before the Sunday game, it was really tough on the players. So good to see them have a day off today. Hopefully, a lot of them got some rest, enjoyed some time with their family, some time away from football in some ways. And many of the first team as well will get a rest in this midweek period. You'll have a game in midweek, not an official one at least, as Valverde is only set to use a small number of the rotational players in the game against Espanyol in the midweek period, which will be the Catalan Super Cup, which is technically a friendly game between the two sides. It is an unofficial match in the football calendar, but we all know Espanyol and friendly don't really go together, so I would expect some tough challenges. You know what the sort of Espanyol team are like, so we're going to have to go into this one with a bit of caution. According to Rack 1, the first team players that will be involved in this game in some degree will be Jasper Cillessen, Yerry Mina, Lucas Digne, Alex Vidal, Denis Suarez, Andre Gomes, Paco Alcácer, and also Ousmane Dembele will apparently play some part in the Catalan Super Cup. So good in some ways to see some minutes finally going to the likes of Yerry Mina. Denis Suarez, of course, he's definitely been out in the cold of late, and I hope they use those chances to impress Valverde and at least try to work their way back into his plans. I'm slightly surprised in some way to see Dembele there. He's not really, I would say, in the category of a lot of those guys, but obviously I would assume that Valverde wants him to get some minutes on the field, perhaps maybe gain some confidence. But like I say, I'm surprised I didn't see him as much against Las Palmas, really surprised not to see him at all against Atletico, so hopefully against Espanyol he goes into that game, gets some minutes and gets some confidence as well. But obviously we have to be careful with him in that game, like I said, about the challenges. So hopefully Dembele doesn't feature too much in that game. I don't think we should leave him out there with Espanyol Espanyol too long, but hopefully he can use that game in the right way, and hopefully we get one over on Espanyol anyway, just for good nature. And that is basically all from today's roundup video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. They're really interested to know your thoughts on the whole crowd issue with Andre Gomes. What do you think of the booing? Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? What would you like to see happen in recent times? Do you want to see that kind of thing cut out, if possible, at the Camp Nou? Do you think that Iniesta has any chance of making that game against Chelsea? Do you think that he's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks, or is he going to make his comeback sooner than expected? And Arthur Melo, do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's days away? Would you be excited to see him at Barcelona? And what do you think about us signing him in January 2019? Is that a good time to sign him? Should we be trying to bring him in before that, maybe in the summer? Let me know all your thoughts and your comments down below, guys. I will see you, as always, with more videos very soon. Thank you, as always, for joining me. But until next time, as always, Vesca El Barça!